225-8465 or 226-8210 today.
This is GHK Lall inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues. Immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation. It's Monday, May 1st. It's a national holiday, Labor Day. I'm GHK Lall on Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Welcome to the National Outlook. I've been off for about 5 weeks, and I thought I needed that time. We had the end of Lent and Holy Week, which takes a lot of time out of people like me because of extended services in the community. So there was that, plus I needed to do some other things. But thank you all for the thoughts that I've heard shared, and it's good to be back with you. Labor Day, may it be a safe and healthy and a joyful day for our workers and all of our citizens in this country. Labor Day, our workers, Guyanese workers, should be on top of the world because of what we have, because of where we are at this time in our national existence. Look at what we have. We have more oil per head, per person, than anybody else in the world. We are at this point in our existence where the whole world is talking about us. And every time the world speaks about Guyana, it's in what we call superlatives. It's in the best terms that they can imagine. The fastest of this, the richest of that, and on and on. So our workers, like I said earlier, should be feeling good about themselves. Well, there are a few workers who are feeling good about themselves. Those on the rigs and getting a nice fat paycheck, and I say good for them and their families. But what about the rest of the Guyanese workers, the minimum wage workers, the public service workers, those workers that you see on the roads, the traffic cops, the firemen, the nurses in their white uniforms, and all the others that are too numerous to mention? What about those workers, the entirety of them, my fellow Guyanese, on this Labor Day? They should be celebrating too, and they should be excited also. But they are not. Because all too often, their families are scraping. They and their families are scrambling to make ends meet. There's a contradiction here, brothers and sisters, that our own people, you could be your neighbor, could be somebody in your village, could be a family member or a relative, who is struggling to get by. And this should not be in the richest country in the world per person. 750,000 people, and we are gasping for breath. Most of us, the great majority of Guyanese. We have a few who are well taken care of. The top public servants, the politicians on both sides of the divide, PPP and PMC. But the rest of Guyanese are left far behind and falling farther behind. On this Labor Day, this is a serious message. It's a serious thought. And it is where we are. It is where too many of us are. We are working honestly, but we are able to cope. It should not be. Not in a country with so much oil and so many other natural resources. I say, have a happy Labor Day, but for many I don't think that is actually going to be. I'm GHK Lall on Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Thank you for listening to the National Outlook.
Covered oil in 2015. In those 5 years, the coalition sat there, never held a press conference to talk exclusively about oil. The Minister of State, Joseph Harman, was asked at 4 different press conferences when he will hold a press conference to talk about oil. He said at first that he has to put together the oil team. He left office and disappeared, and that was the end of that. The PPP, headed by Jagdev in opposition, used to hold press conferences and promised to investigate what the PNC did. They won the elections and came into power. It's going on 3 years now, and they have never held a press conference to talk exclusively about this US $1 trillion oil sector. Now, we have the opposition headed by Norton, and they have never held any such press conference on oil. Yet, both the PNC and the PPP hosting press conferences regularly. And if they're not asked, you will hear little or absolutely nothing from them about this sector. Jagdev held 5 press conferences in just a few weeks. 4, yes, 4 held at Freedom House to talk about your vote and other party issues, and only one on national issues, in which 3/4 of that press conference was to attack and abuse out the PNC. And then he spoke about some frivolous things, what them have in store for the 14 new oil blocks, where not a single drop of oil has been discovered in any one of them. The Exxon Stabroek block, where billions of barrels were discovered, there has not been a single word said about that block. And when oil questions are put to Jagdev on what's going on with the oil business and how it's run, instead of answering the questions, he tries to insult and embarrass the Kaieteur News. This has been their way of distracting the nation from the exploitation and mismanagement of our gold and oil industry. Cheers. Take a drink, and y'all gonna vote for them. This is a message from Glenn Lall. Please share it.
Kaieteur Radio.
Covering Guyana from coast to coast.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Berbice 99.5 FM.